And his name is Shawn Grate.
Yes.
Like Grate.
Yes.
Does he have a weapon?
He's got a taser.
What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, welcome to my channel and welcome to another True Crime Sunday. Before I get into this week's case, I wanted to talk about a video that I uploaded in the early hours of the morning. I uploaded this video a couple of days ago at around 1 AM, and the video was titled Hide. And I didn't give any context to the video because I didn't actually realize that it was on public. And I uploaded the video for my undergraduate degree, and it actually has a lot to do with this channel. For my degree, I major in literature, I minor in psychology, and then I also minor in music because I like music. The assignment was that we were supposed to write in our chosen genre, which my chosen genre obviously is going to be crime. I'm not a romance person. I'm not a comedy person. My genre is crime. I wanted to write about an experience that I had with my true crime channel. And so that's what I did. I wrote about my experience with stalking, harassment, and there were elements from other things that have recently happened to me that I can't actually talk about because it's still an open investigation that involves me. Because I didn't give any context to the video, a lot of you guys think or thought that I did actually get abducted. I didn't, I'm fine. And a lot of you guys are smart. You commented on there being like, well, it wouldn't have been uploaded if she was abducted, all this kind of stuff. I don't mean to scare anyone, but I do think that that video is super important. It really depicts like how little help you have when you are being stalked, especially if it's online. When things from your online life start to bleed into your real life and how it starts to affect you physically, you know, when you share your locations and things like that. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to just clear up before I get into this next case. It's interesting that I'm doing this particular case because there's a lot of interest in me on how young people doing very problematic things grow into being older people who do horrific crimes. And that's also something that I've been trying to... Something happened to me last week and it was done by a young person. And it worries me on what he's gonna end up doing as an older person if he's not caught. And so I'm not really allowed, I don't know what I can share, but I just wanted to have some sort of lesson come from it, and also like explain to you guys why I've been a little bit weird on posting and things like that, and why I uploaded that video. And it's just a whole thing of things, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, let's get into today's case and then we'll discuss at the end the ramifications of being a young person who has some troubling things going on that isn't caught, that isn't reprimanded or helped. I will say as well, this case might seem very similar to cases that we know, like the cases like the JC Dugard case. It's not that case. It's very, very different. And I think when people think of like women who have been found after they've been abducted when they were younger, or, you know, gotten out of an abduction case, FYI, this is an abduction case. I think when we think of those things, we think, oh, that happened years ago. No, this case only settled in 2018. We're in 2019 right now. So that's what makes this case very scary. You know what I'm saying? Because this is a very recent case. And yeah, so when we think of the JC Dugard case, we think of like, oh, that happened years ago. Like it wouldn't happen now. This happened now. Shawn Michael Grate was born on August 8th, 1976. Today, he is 43 years old. Now, Shawn grew up in Marion, Ohio, and when he was 15, his parents decided that they would be getting a divorce, and his sole custody would be awarded to his mother. And even though he spent those years with his mother, just before he turned 18, that sole custody was then transferred to his father. At this stage, it's really unknown what his childhood was like once he was transferred to his father. But I think it's kind of interesting that the sole custody was transferred to his father just shy of him being 18, and then his first arrest happened at 18. So this first arrest was actually for domestic violence. He was still in school at this point. He was an 18-year-old boy. His girlfriend at the time had actually been trying to leave him for quite some time, and that's when it resulted in her being assaulted by him. So Shawn assaulted his girlfriend basically in a short period of living with his father. When his girlfriend contacted the police, she did say that there was a history of domestic violence though, and he hadn't even graduated high school yet. So you could either look at it as maybe he saw some behaviors from his father of domestic violence, or you could even look at it at a point of maybe his mother couldn't handle him because he was so violent that she was like, I can't do this anymore, and so that's when he moved on to his father. But realistically, very little is known about his childhood and how he turned out this way. He would graduate from River Valley High in 1995, and that's when he would be investigated for a felony burglary charge. This was in conjunction with another young person involved who I don't know who that is, but they were investigated for this felony burglary charge, and he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. But even though he was sentenced to 4 years in prison, he only served out around 7 months and he was released thereafter. When Shawn was released, his 17-year-old girlfriend called the police and said that Shawn had held her down and begun choking her. She was pregnant at the time with his child, and he threatened to come back and kill her. 1 month later, in 1999, Shawn would be arrested again, and he was charged with multiple charges, including breaking and entering and threatening the life of his girlfriend. And in that police report, it said that that girlfriend had been trying to leave him for 6 months. So at this point, Shawn's girlfriends are getting younger and younger, and because of this and because of the violence that he had inflicted on his young, pregnant girlfriend, the girlfriend's family asked the court to invoke a no-contact restraining order. But 6 months later, she would give birth to his child and later go on to ask the courts to lift the no-contact restraining order, even though he was domestically violent, and the restraining order was lifted. And it would only be 1 month later that Shawn would be yielding a butcher's knife at his girlfriend who had just given birth to his child and her family. This resulted in minor injuries both to herself and to Shawn. After this incident, Shawn would be found hiding inside of her couch, and then he would be arrested. Because of this knife-wielding incident, which resulted in being a felony charge, the court would, instead of sentencing him for the knife-wielding incident, they just said, you need to complete your 4 years of jail time from the before felony charge for burglary. And then after he would get out of prison, they said, because you wielded a knife at your young girlfriend, you'll go on probation. So that's what he did. Shawn finished his 4 years in prison for the burglary charge, and then he went on probation for the knife-wielding incident, and he would be released from prison. He was released in January of 2003, and then in 2005, the body of a Jane Doe would be found in the vicinity of his old house. Now, 2005 is an estimate from the police on when she may have been murdered because she was found much later. This is just the start of this video and the start of Shawn Grate, but I can tell you that now, after everything that's happened, he has confessed to this particular murder, but he doesn't remember what her name was or who she was, and she still to this day remains unidentified. Also, in the year of 2005, a woman named Hildreth, who was in a relationship with Shawn for about 5 years, would move in with Shawn Grate. And Shawn was incredibly upset that he was moving in with Hildreth with her children. He was happy to move in with Hildreth, but he just didn't want the children around. But even though we know that up until 2010, January of 2010, there was some minor incidents with Shawn Grate, she says at the time they were mostly verbal abuse rather than physical abuse. And then June of 2010 would roll around and Hildreth would be taken to the emergency room with injuries to her face, claiming that she'd just fallen. Shawn had taken her to the emergency room and accompanied her for the majority of the time. The nurse actually brought Hildreth into a separate room and Shawn wasn't allowed in that room. And that is where Hildreth said, "Hey, I need help. This is what really happened." And so she told the nurse, and that's when police were called. Hildreth said that rather than falling, like she said previously, that Shawn had actually repeatedly punched her in the face and then began choking her. Additionally, when Hildreth, during the attack, put her hand up to block a blow, that's when Shawn dislocated her fingers. She would convince Shawn to let her go to the emergency room and say that she'd just fallen. And so he let her go and he accompanied her. So after she told the nurse and after the nurse called police, when the police rocked up to the hospital, Shawn saw them and began running on foot. Shawn had successfully evaded arrest and the police couldn't find him for a couple of days. But we know from his past incidents that Shawn likes to hide in people's couches. And that is exactly where they found him. They found him hiding in Hildreth's couch. So he was actually hiding in that couch for 4 days. The police took 4 days to realize that he was actually hiding within her couch. And he would be arrested and sentenced to 180 days in prison for a first-degree misdemeanor. Hildreth would be the second ex-partner of Shawn Grate who would invoke a no-contact order. But this time, Shawn repeatedly broke this and called her from prison. Hildreth has said that she believes if she didn't tell that nurse what had happened and if she didn't leave Shawn at the moment that she did, that she would be dead today, or that one of her children would be dead because Shawn really didn't like her children living there. She said that prior to the June 2010 incident where he almost killed her, that she'd always had the feeling that he might kill her, but it only strengthened after that incident, and that's when she knew that she had to leave. In 2011, Shawn would marry a woman in Mansfield after meeting her in church. The pair had their first date at a church singles event, and she says that Shawn didn't have his license at the time, and he was a grown-ass man. He didn't have a job or anything like that, and his reasoning for this was that he had come up into some trouble when he was younger, and that's why he didn't have his license or a job now. So because Shawn didn't have a license, she actually picked him up for this date. Nobody knows it at this time, but obviously with hindsight, we know that by this point, he's already stabbed a woman to death in 2005. And then it would be in July of the next year that this woman that he married at a church event would give birth to his second child. Now this is a baby girl. Now when describing giving birth to Shawn Grate's daughter, she says that it was really strange because when she was giving birth, Shawn wasn't there for the majority of it. She said that he was only there for a little part when the baby was actually coming out, and then he disappeared after. He straight up disappeared. But when Shawn came back, she said that she saw his phone and it was ringing and she decided to answer it. And there was another woman on the other line, and the woman was like, "Hey, I'm looking for Shawn." And this lady who had just given birth, Shawn's wife, was like, "Well, I'm his wife. Can I help you with something?" And that's when the other woman on the other line was like, "I am so sorry. He told me that he was living with his sister who had just given birth. And I thought that Shawn was single." So Shawn Grate has told this other lady that he was sleeping with that, "Oh no, that's actually my sister whom I live with. And I have just not made a baby with her. And that baby that's my sister. That's not my wife. FYI, I just used the word whom in the wrong context. That was supposed to be a who, not a whom. I'm sorry. I will interject here and say that it might seem very strange that Shawn is able to get all these women in his life, even though he's been shown and he's proven to these women that he is very violent, he is very scary, and that he's all the infidelity, you know what I'm saying? But he has been described as being incredibly charismatic. And in the only interview that his mother has ever agreed to, she said, let me get my notes on this to quote her directly. She said, yes, he's good looking, but the devil's good looking too. He ain't no red horns and all that stuff. You find out he's charming, and of course the charm can charm the pants off anybody. That is a quote from his mother. So if you're wondering why all these women are openly getting married to this very violent man, on top of the fact that being in a domestically violent situation is incredibly hard to get out of, this man is proven to be very charismatic, and obviously he's kind of good looking. So that's the thing. So we're talking about this marriage and this recent birthing of a child to Shawn. When you look at the timeline, they actually only got married 2 months after she found out she was pregnant. So it kind of seems like she's found out she's pregnant. They don't want to have a baby out of wedlock. I was going to say dreadlock. It's not that. And they get married. Then they have the baby. And then they get a divorce. So they got a divorce only 1 month after their baby girl was born. And that would be in October of 2012. He was also accused of choking his wife and forcing her to perform a sexual act, but he was never charged with sexual assault. Instead, Shawn was actually charged with a misdemeanor, 2 counts of misdemeanor domestic violence, and he was sentenced to 7 months in prison, but he would be later released. 6 months later, she would file a restraining order against him, and it would be a no contact restraining order because he had threatened her as well as threatening her family. But again, as we know, the restraining orders with Shawn just actually don't even do anything, and he continuously breaks this restraining order by calling her, as well as calling her at her workplace. Now, this one incident where he had called her workplace, he threatened to kill her family. He had said, if I can't see my daughter, then no one else will. And once he got out of prison, he was in a bit of a financial pickle, and he would also call her and leave her voice messages saying that if she doesn't support him financially, he would put all of the names of her family members in a hat, and then she would then go to the courts and ask them to make Shawn pay for child support like he should, instead of asking her to pay him money. You know what I'm saying? So that he won't murder her family. So anyway, she takes him to court, and the courts decide that yes, Shawn should be paying child support. And so he actually does start paying child support. But he starts leaving her continuous messages saying, I'm paying for a child that I don't see. He said that she has 2 options, that he can either see his daughter or that she can pay him back all the child support that he's paying for his child. Shawn also attempted to rape his ex-wife and also came very, very close to murdering her. There was a situation where she thought that they were just messing around, and then he pushed her onto the bed, climbed on top of her. She said that he looked her directly in the eyes and that he was choking her, and she said that she thought that she was going to die. 2 years later, in January of 2015, Rebecca Lisi would disappear from Mansfield, where she was living. And 15 months later, her body would be found quite close to Mifflin. In 2016, Shawn would flee from Richland County Sheriff deputies and would enter into a wooded area where sniffer dogs were unable to find him. 2 months later, in August of 2016, Elizabeth Griffith would go missing from a Walmart in Ashland. 1 month later, in September of 2016, Stacey Stanley goes missing from a BP in Ashland. 5 days later, a woman would call police saying that Shawn Grate had abducted her and is keeping her in a vacant house in Ashland.
911, what is the address to your emergency?
By the 4th Street Laundromat.
What is it?
4th Street Laundromat.
What's the problem?
I've been abducted.
What's your name? How do you spell your last name? Who abducted you?
Shawn Grate.
You said John Green?
Shawn Grate.
Where's he at now?
Asleep.
Where's he sleeping at?
In the bedroom.
In what bedroom?
There's 2 houses right by the laundry street. And it's in one of those houses.
But you're at the laundromat?
No, I'm in the bedroom with them.
What color's the house? Is it a crop? If I'm looking at the laundromat, which way is it?
If you're looking in the laundromat, it's one on the left of the 2.
You don't know what color the house is?
Yellow. Please hurry.
Does he have a car?
No. Well, at least right down the street.
What's your phone number you're calling me from?
I don't know.
And you think it's a yellow house?
I think so, but it's on the left.
Is it an apartment?
No, it's a house.
Okay, does he own the house?
No, he broke into it.
Does anybody actually live there?
I think they've been abandoned.
And his name is Shawn Grate?
Yes.
Like Grate?
Yes.
Does he have a weapon?
He's got a taser.
Is he like 6 foot or is he shorter than that?
He's like 6'1", 6'2".
Do you know how much he weighs?
Probably 175.
Are you injured?
A little.
What color's his hair?
Brown.
Do you know what color his eyes are? What's he wearing?
Nothing right now.
Okay, stay on the phone with me. Stay on the line with me, okay? Is he still sleeping? Where did he take you from?
My apartment. I mean, I was walking with him.
You were walking with him? Where were you walking to?
I've known him for like a month and a half.
Is there any way you can get out of the building?
I don't know without waking him, and I'm scared.
Is there a bathroom in the house?
Well, his bedroom is closed, and he made it so it would make noise.
And if you told him you had to go to the bathroom, he would do something to you?
Yeah, because he had me tied up.
Are you tied up now?
Well, yeah, but I kind of freed myself.
Is he in the same room with you?
Yes.
Is it his phone you have?
Are they on the way?
Yeah, we have officers we're sending.
Please send them up.
Okay, if you're worried, you don't have to talk to me. Just set the phone down, okay? I just need to hear if the officers find you or not. Are you upstairs or are you downstairs?
We're downstairs. There's a door. There's a side door on the right of the left house, and that's where we enter. There's a kitchen right there, and then the bedroom is right right off from the kitchen.
Okay. Do you need an ambulance? Are you bleeding from anywhere?
Not anymore.
Where were you bleeding from? You don't have to talk if you don't need to, okay? Do you know where you live?
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. I woke him up.
I just set the phone down. Are you still there? Are you still there? What? Do you hear any officers outside? Okay, they're in the area.
See if they can come in the side door slow, like, softly.
Is there a padlock on the bedroom door, or is it just a regular lock?
No, I don't even know if it's locked. I have a knob, so
Can you get up and see if you can get out?
I'm afraid of waking him. If I knew the cops were right there, I would do it. I don't even know if it opens, how it opens.
Is there a window around there you can look out?
Yeah, but the floor squeaks and it's right by his head.
Are you laying down?
No, I'm standing right by the bedroom door.
And you can't open it?
What?
Can you open it?
I'm trying without making noise.
Is the door to the house open?
I don't know, probably. I don't think he has a key, I'm not sure. Because I think he broke in here.
Can you see out any window that you're at?
They're all curtains shut.
What's that? What's that noise?
I don't hear anything.
If you think you can get out, you need to get out.
Not unless they were right here. He would hear me, catch me, and he's strong.
He's on the first floor. Are you at the house closest to the laundromat or the other one? Are you the one closest to the laundromat or the other one?
We were standing in the laundromat looking at the two houses that would be on the left.
Here, look out of the laundromat. So if you're looking at the laundromat, you're the one on the right. At the laundromat. Because if you're looking at the laundromat, you're the one on the left.
side door. Side door.
And the side door. The side door to the right.
Okay, I can hear him.
You hear him? Okay, do you think you can get out? Are you out of the bedroom?
It doesn't have a doorknob. You need to push.
The door doesn't have a doorknob? Can you see them?
You have to push the door a little.
He said push the door. Are they on the other side of the door? She said have you guys push the door. There's no doorknob there.
Just push it. I think it will.
Can you get out of the bedroom?
And the door is doesn't have a knob.
Can you hear anybody right now? She heard the side door open.
Where'd they go? Out of the bedroom.
You're out? Okay, can you get to the door where you can see out? Huh? Can you get out of the house? It's locked. Are you at the door? She's at the door. You're on the door to the right-hand side of the house. She's at the door on the right side of the house. She got out of the bedroom. Is there a window there?
Yeah, I'm looking out and they tell me to come back.
She said,
Hurry, hurry.
she said to hurry up and come back. Can you,
She needs to come to it.
the door is locked. No, the bedroom door had no door here. This one, it's locked. You can't get out. Can you unlock the door at all?
Hurry up, get out of here. Where is he?
Bedroom sleeping.
Still sleeping?
Yeah.
Okay, they have her.
He's not unarmed.
Unarmed?
Yeah.
Right. You need to go. Hang on.
From this point in the video, we are going to start referring to this woman who called 911 as Jane Doe because her identity has been suppressed. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment. She likes to paint, she likes to play music, and she is extremely religious. She is very into church. Her favorite book to read is the Bible, and she met Shawn at the local center in Ashland where they would go on walks and talk about the Bible. After a while, Shawn wanted to take their friendship to another level, and this woman, Jane Doe, didn't want to. In fact, Jane Doe had very, very strict rules on no men being allowed in their apartment. At one stage, when she had made Shawn a sandwich, it was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I believe, she made Shawn sit outside of her apartment door and eat the sandwich while she ate at the door. And she also said that at one point he got a little bit too close to the door and he tried to put his foot in there or something, and she was very strict. She was like, please exit the perimeter of my door, like get out of the doorway. I was very clear about my rules on this. She doesn't believe that there should be any relationship before marriage. So she's very, very religious, and she's very smart in keeping men outside of her apartment, and that was just a very strict rule that she had. She had actually been into Shawn Grate's house before. She went in there when she was accompanied with other people from church, where they went into Shawn's apartment, and that was the only reason that she went in there, because she was with other people. And then from that situation, she had felt safe to go in there once more when they were going on their walk and Shawn forgot a jumper, and so they went back to his apartment and he grabbed a jumper and then they left. That is the only time that she has ever been in Shawn Grate's apartment prior to the incident. She had said that the second time she went into Shawn Grate's apartment that she was kind of shocked, because she said there were dirty dishes getting built up, and she just assumed from the last time that she went in there with the church folk that he was a very clean kind of person. But the second time she went in there, she said that wasn't the case, and she was kind of shocked. And because Jane Doe is quite a clean cut, very, very religious woman, because she saw all this built up dirty mess, she said that she quickly made excuses and she left. And that was the night before he abducted her. So she had some weird feelings, and I guess maybe her intuition said leave. And it doesn't necessarily have too much to do with things being dirty. I don't get the vibe that she's a very judgmental person, because I watched the trial, and even though you can't see her face, you can hear her voice, and she seems very lovely. She just seems very responsible. And so I don't think she's being judgmental when she says that she made excuses because she saw dirty dishes. I genuinely think that was her intuition saying, something's gonna happen, girlfriend, get the heck out of there. And so it's good that she did. Unfortunately, it didn't stop what happened to her. So the next day, the pair went to a Walmart plaza because she wanted to go to the Dollar Tree to get a couple of cleaning supplies, things like that. And I guess she maybe, in the time that she left his apartment the previous day when he needed to get a jacket, maybe she did the thing that all of us women do when we think, maybe I overreacted, maybe I was a bit judgmental, I'll continue hanging out with this person because I think I was just crazy. This is when she would see a friend of hers, and her friend, who had just gotten off work, decided that, you know, I'll give these two a lift home. So what her friend did was that her friend drove both of them home, but she dropped them both at Jane Doe's apartment. And that's when Jane Doe made him some food, because they were complaining like, I'm really hungry. So she's like, I'll go make you some food. But she still made him eat outside of her apartment. This was when Shawn Grate said, hey, I've got a bag of clothes at my apartment that I think you might like. If you want to come and have a look, see if there's anything in there that you might like, maybe you can come and take the bag off my hands. Shawn was like, do you have a spare Bible? Because I really want one of my own. I just, you know, I don't have one, and I would love to have my own Bible. And so she was like, yeah, I have a Bible. I can give you a Bible. And so she got a Bible, and she said, I really wanted to show him my favorite passages out of the Bible that I thought that he might really like. So when they got to his apartment, he actually did have a bag of clothes there for her. She said this wasn't really uncommon. He had given her some clothes before that she had accepted, and some things that maybe she just threw away, because he liked giving her gifts. He even gave her a rock that he had found, I think, that he liked, and she said that she ended up just like leaving it near her couch, and it might have just gotten kicked under the couch. So she had this relationship with this guy, and it was just a friendship, but he would give her gifts that she wasn't really too into. She was just super into God, and she wanted to be this guy's friend and, you know, talk to him about God and go for walks and talk about God and the Bible and stuff like that. So they're walking back to Shawn's house. They have a bag. It's full of food that she was giving him, like oatmeal, things like that, because I think that he was living a little bit rough, and maybe she saw that and she wanted to be neighborly and give him some food. And she also had the spare Bible with him. And yeah, when they got to his house, there was a bag of clothes there. It was a see-through bag, and she looked at the bag and she was like, yeah, I can take the bag off your hands. Like, yeah, cool. But she wanted to show him these passages from this Bible. And so she sat down on the bed. And in the trial, the defense, so Shawn's side, were like, well, why did you sit on the bed? Why didn't you sit somewhere else? That's kind of provocative. And she's like, well, I sat on the bed because that's all that was there, and I didn't think that this was going to happen. So she sat on the bed, she opened the Bible, and Shawn sat next to her. And she said that she started reading the passage to him. She said that he kind of seemed a little bit distant, and she felt there was something weird happening, and so she stopped. She stopped, she looked up at him, and he said, no, keep going, like, I want to hear it. I'm just going to go to the kitchen and I'll be right back, but I'm still listening. And so she continues reading. He goes into the kitchen, and she says at this point she thought, oh, he's probably just getting some of the food that I gave him. Maybe he's still hungry. And so she thought he was going in there to get some food. But when Shawn came back from the kitchen, he came into the bedroom and snatched the Bible right out of her hands. Now, in the trial, when she was describing it, this is when she like broke down. She was trembling, crying, like her voice, like, yeah, she couldn't really talk. Like this was the part where she broke down. She said that after he snatched the Bible out of her hands, he said, you're not going anywhere. The pair started to fight. She said that she tried to kick, punch, scream, scratch, and everything that she did to get out of that apartment, she said he just did 10 times harder back to her. He punched her in the face repeatedly. And then she said that she gave up fighting when he wrapped his hands around her throat and began to choke her. So she gave up and she just lied there. And that's when he stopped choking her. He didn't speak to her at all during this. He just looked at her while he was above her. And when she realized she wasn't getting out of this situation, he'd asked her if she had had enough. She remained pretty motionless while he took her clothes off, but he was being incredibly rough with her clothes and began to rip them. She says that at this point she knew what was going to happen, and she did want clothes to change back into afterwards, and so she said stop. She said, I'll take them off, and that's when she took the remainder of her clothes off. She said she didn't resist because he had already proven to her that he was 10 times stronger than her. And she also said that she knew she was bleeding from her head somewhere, she just didn't know where. She just felt the blood. Shawn raped her several times. I'm not going to go into too much detail on exactly what happened. If you want to do that, you can watch the trial. I'll link it below, but you'll see if you watch it that this is when the prosecution asked her to be very specific, and she broke down. And it's a very uncomfortable feeling to remember it in the first place, but to be asked to go into more detail than what you already offered is such an uncomfortable feeling, and something that I recently had to do. And it's you think you're being specific until they ask you for more detail, and you have to be even more specific in the in terms of the prosecutor saying, okay, well, so he raped you. Where did he rape you? Where was his penis in your body? And she cried. This is when you can tell that she's not coping very well, because instead of answering questions that she obviously knows the answer to, she starts answering all the questions with, I don't know, like, you know, stop. She said that he bound her legs and her wrists into really strange positions, and obviously this is her first sexual encounter, so she's she's losing it. And this is not even a sexual encounter. Like, this is a horrible encounter. So sometimes he would bind her to herself, and then other times he would bind her to the bed, and he made it so that the doors and the windows and everything would make a huge noise if she attempted to open them. He also had a taser that he would threaten her with, and Jane Doe was an abductee to Shawn Grate for 3 days. So that is when she called the police, and that's what you guys had heard just before, was the 911 police call. And when police entered the house, they saw that Shawn was naked. They obviously found Jane Doe, but they also found 2 unidentified bodies. And then when they arrested Shawn, he led them to a 3rd unidentified body. The 2 unidentified bodies that were found in Ashland were Elizabeth Griffith and Stacey Stanley. In fact, the abductee, the one who survived, Jane Doe, she actually lived next door to Elizabeth. Jane Doe described Elizabeth as kind of being a little bit childish, and when she would meet new people, she would be very open about her like mental capacity. And Jane Doe said that she had once before said to Elizabeth to stop being so open about her, you know, situation, because she said that it would make it really easy for someone to take advantage of you. Stop being so open about that stuff to strangers. She said that Elizabeth had met Shawn Grate when Jane Doe was there on one occasion. And this is when she had to pull her aside again and be like, hey, remember when I said, don't do that? Don't do that. And she'd actually been missing. So Elizabeth had been missing for 1 month before Jane Doe was abducted by Shawn Grate. Now, because of this, the abduction, all the bodies found, the Rebecca Lisi case has been reopened and is being reinvestigated. Shawn Grate was indicted for 23 counts, and 2 of those indictments were for 2 counts of murder. He was sentenced to the death penalty, and he was supposed to have been executed on June 1st of 2018. Shawn Grate is a serial killer. He has 5 known victims. 1 of them is still unidentified, and 1 of them being Jane Doe. And after Shawn was incarcerated, he began sending his living daughter cards that didn't have any sign off on them. They didn't have anything on there, except they all included every single time a $5 note. And his ex-wife says that she believes that it is $1 per murder. So $5 for his 5 victims. But I don't know how, you know, maybe, but I actually don't think that Shawn's that smart. So that is the case of Shawn Grate. And it's interesting that we don't hear about these kinds of things. I literally heard about this case with a random 10-second video that I saw of the 911 call, and I was like, oh, I wonder when that was. And I decided to cover this case because I realized it was in 2018. That was last year. And whenever you think about these cases, as I said at the start of this video, you think of JC Dugard, and that you think of that happening not now, not in 2019, not in 2018, but serial killers still exist, but they aren't as widely romanticized as serial killers of the past, of serial killers in history. So I think it's just very interesting to note that while we are in the spooky season, it is Halloween and everyone is like monsters, death, things like that. No, these people still exist. This happened in 2018. That is 5 dead bodies. That is a serial killer existing in 2018, and none of you know about it. Well, I mean, I'm assuming none of you know about it because I had no idea. And there are so many more cases like this. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this case. Obviously, it is a solved case. It's not a mystery, so we don't really have to wonder about theories. That's why this video doesn't have a theory section, but let me know what you think. Did you know about this case? Are you shocked that it's still happening in 2018? Are you shocked that we're not hearing about this as a serial killing? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up. It really does help. And if you want to see a True Crime Sunday every single Sunday, I do that. That's what I do. So subscribe. And I also do a haul video, beauty video, storytime video, all that kind of stuff every single week on a Wednesday. So yeah, you guys know how to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.